Prepared by Free Speech for People, petition for impeaching Trump 16 counts. Resolution. Impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Resolved, that Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, and that the following articles of impeachment be exhibited to the Senate. Articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives of the United States of America in the name of itself and of the people of the United States of America, against Donald John Trump, President of the United States of America, in maintenance and support of its impeachment against him for high crimes and misdemeanors. Article 1. Illegally and unconstitutionally kidnapping and imprisoning U.S. residents in his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice, in that Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents, in a course of conduct or plan to kidnap, arrest, detain, imprison, and, in certain cases, remove from the United States, without any due process and in violation of their constitutional and statutory rights, hundreds of people who peacefully live in our country. In carrying out this assault on immigrants, including refugees, students, and other lawful visa holders, he has violated the First Amendment, abused the authority of his office to seek retribution against people who hold views with which he does not agree, violated federal immigration law, usurped judicial authority, unconstitutionally impeded local and state authority, and targeted individuals on the basis of their religious, ethnic, or racial identities. The means used to implement this course of conduct or plan included but have not been limited to the following, carried out in coordination with or via his close subordinates. 1. He unlawfully detained, removed, and paid for the foreign imprisonment of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. Mr. Abrego Garcia fled gang violence in El Salvador as a teenager and is subject to a withholding order under 8 U.S.C. Section 1231. B.3a, that forbids his removal to El Salvador because of the high likelihood that he would face persecution there. In direct violation of this order, Mr. Abrego Garcia was arrested by ICE agents, moved across multiple state lines, and flown to El Salvador, where he was immediately imprisoned in a maximum security prison that deprives prisoners of human rights, including access to attorneys and visitors, and subjects them to forced labor. Trump is paying $6 million of U.S. taxpayer dollars annually to El Salvador to imprison immigrants removed from the United States, including Mr.
Abrego Garcia.
In defiance of multiple court orders, Trump, via senior officials, has refused to facilitate his return. 2. He unlawfully smuggled Venezuelan migrants out of the United States via planes that took off in secret in order to evade court oversight, and subjected them to unlawful and abusive imprisonment in El Salvador, where they have been denied access to attorneys and other basic rights. 1. At least some of the imprisoned Venezuelans have credible claims for asylum, have no prison records or affiliation with gangs, and came to the United States to escape political and economic oppression. Hundreds of migrants are now being imprisoned in a maximum security prison in El Salvador without trial or hearing by either government on the unproven assertion by Trump that they are members of a criminal gang. Their unlawful imprisonment is being funded by Trump using taxpayer dollars, who directly or via his close subordinates has entered into an agreement to pay El Salvador to imprison migrants to the United States. None of the imprisoned individuals have been afforded due process or charged with any crime. 3. He unlawfully stripped Rumeysa Ozturk, Mahmoud Khalil, and other international students of their visas. The White House, invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Aragua, March
15/2025 JGG.
Trump, Memorandum of Law in support of plaintiff's motion for temporary restraining order, case number 25-76, March 15, 2025, Sylvia Fosterfrau, 44 Venezuelan Friends, Alien Enemies Act cuts short an American Dream, Washington Post, March 18, 2025, in order to arrest, imprison, and attempt to deport them for expressing views that support Palestine, in violation of the First Amendment and federal immigration law. As part of this scheme, Trump, via his subordinates, has moved these unlawfully imprisoned students across multiple state lines and to remote prisons far from the students' residences to evade judicial oversight and prevent their access to attorneys and their families. To facilitate these illegal detentions, Donald John Trump has knowingly abused U.S. national security laws to orchestrate unlawful attacks on disfavored speakers and immigrants. Specifically, he directly or through close associates unlawfully invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, 50 U.S.C. Ch. 3 Section 21, to deport Venezuelans from the United States to El Salvador without adhering to U.S. laws governing the removal of non-citizens, and falsely asserted that international students' pro-Palestine speech had serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States to justify the withdrawal of their visas and residency statutes, 8 U.S.C. Section 1227, and 4 I. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office. Article 2. Illegally and unconstitutionally removing U.S. residents, migrants, and asylum seekers to foreign prisons. In his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice, in that Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents, in a course of conduct or plan to remove people from the United States, pay foreign governments to imprison them in foreign prisons or camps without due process, and disavow responsibility for the prisoners, including the responsibility to return them to U.S. soil when ordered to do so by U.S. courts. In furtherance of this scheme, Donald John Trump, directly or through his close subordinates, has 1. Paid El Salvador $6 million using U.S. taxpayer dollars to accept and imprison more than 230 mostly Venezuelan men who sought refuge in the United States. These men remain imprisoned in an overcrowded maximum security prison known as Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorism, CECOT, and are being deprived of basic human rights, including access to attorneys. Senior officials and close allies of Trump ordered or were otherwise involved in smuggling the migrants out of the United States via planes that took off in secret and in order to evade court oversight. Although Trump and senior officials within his administration claim that these individuals are members of a Venezuelan gang, they have not presented any evidence in a court of law to support these claims. 2. Forcibly and unlawfully removed Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia to CECOT, in violation of a court order prohibiting Mr. Abrego Garcia's removal to El Salvador, a country he fled as a child to escape persecution of El Salvadoran gangs. Senior Trump officials have refused to orchestrate or facilitate his return, in defiance of multiple court orders and despite the fact that his imprisonment was facilitated and continues to be paid for by the United States government using U.S. taxpayer dollars, and he remains unlawfully imprisoned under abusive, inhumane conditions. 3. Arrested, shackled, and forcibly removed more than 100 migrants, including children, to Panama because their countries of origin would not accept them. The migrants were stripped of their passports, barred from seeing attorneys, and locked as prisoners first in a hotel and then in a remote encampment in the jungle. 4. Engaged in ongoing efforts to remove Venezuelan men to be imprisoned in Secot in El Salvador without due process, including by moving immigrants between 3 Julie Turkiewicz et al. Migrants, deported to Panama under Trump plan, detained in remote jungle camp, New York Times, February 19, 2015, immigration detention facilities to evade U.S. court oversight. 5. Announced plans to expand this scheme to include the removal of U.S. citizens to be imprisoned in El Salvador, specifically by telling Salvadoran President Bukele that, he homegrowns are next. You've got to build about 5 more places. The imprisonment of migrants to the United States in foreign prisons and the plans to imprison U.S. citizens in foreign prisons deprive prisoners of the rights afforded to them by the U.S. Constitution and constitute a direct assault on the rule of law in this country. As was explained in a unanimous 3-judge ruling of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit in Mr. Abrego Garcia's case. If today the executive claims the right to deport without due process and in disregard of court order, what assurances will there be tomorrow that it will not deport American citizens and then disclaim responsibility to bring them home, and what assurances shall there be that the executive will not train its broad discretionary power upon its political Kyle Cheney et al., Trump, in a rare move, deferred to another world leader? It's a clear legal play. Politico, April 14, 2025. The threat, even if not the actuality, would always be present, and the executive's obligation to take care that the laws be faithfully executed would lose its meaning. Despite the Fourth Circuit's ruling and the warning contained therein, Donald John Trump has refused to facilitate, orchestrate, or even demand the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States, and has not withdrawn his request that the Salvadoran president build more prisons to hold U.S. citizens. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States.
Abrego García v.
No.
25 to 1404, 2025 WL 113-5112, at *2, 4th Circle April 17, 2025. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office. Article 3. Unlawfully and unconstitutionally attempting to deport immigrants for peacefully protesting. In his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice in that. Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents, in a course of conduct or plan designed to violate the First Amendment rights of lawfully admitted permanent residents and other individuals who are lawfully present in this country, and to violate federal immigration law to the harm and detriment of our country's lawful residents. The means used to implement this course of conduct or plan include the unlawful arrests, detentions, and ongoing attempts to deport Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeysa Ozturk, and other international students because they have exercised their rights under the First Amendment. All immigrants residing in this country are accorded freedom of speech and of press. Bridges v. Wixon, 326 U.S. 135, 1945. Lawfully admitted permanent residents, including Mr. Khalil, have been afforded the status of having been lawfully accorded the privilege of residing permanently in the United States as an immigrant, 8 U.S.C. Section 1101, A, 20, and can be deported only in limited circumstances, none of which have been satisfied by Trump or the U.S. State Department with regard to Mr. Khalil. People studying in the United States on student visas, like Ms. Osterk, may be deported for a broader but still limited range of circumstances, none of which have been satisfied by Trump or the U.S. Department of State with regard to Ms.
Öztürk.
They may not be persecuted, stripped of their visas, detained, or deported for exercising their First Amendment rights. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has asserted that the administration intends to deport any green card holder who participates in pro-Palestine protests. The arrest, imprisonment, and threatened deportation of Mr. Khalil, Ms. Marco Rubio, we will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. Osterk, and other immigrants who engage in peaceful protests is a direct assault on the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and on federal immigration law, which strictly limits the grounds on which the government may rely in seeking to revoke a person's visa or permanent residency status. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office. Article 4. Unconstitutionally usurping Congress's powers in his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has engaged in a corrupt course of conduct that demonstrates his unfitness to serve as President of the United States, in that Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents in a course of conduct or plan designed to undermine and usurp the authority and powers vested in Congress by Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. The means used to implement this course of conduct or plan included the following, carried out in coordination with or via his close subordinates. 1. He created a position of authority in and over federal agencies that qualifies the officeholder as an officer of the United States and installed Elon Musk in that position, in violation of the Advice and Consent Clause of the U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. The Constitution provides Congress alone with the power to establish public ministers and consuls, and all other officers of the United States, which shall be established by law. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. A president may nominate a person to any such position only by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. Trump usurped both powers by creating a new position in his cabinet and installing Elon Musk in that position. The extensive powers that have been afforded to Musk in that position belie any claim by Trump that Musk is not an officer of the United States. The U.S. Supreme Court has long recognized that any appointee exercising significant authority pursuant to the laws of the United States is an officer of the United States, and must, therefore, be appointed in the manner prescribed by Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. Buckley v.
Valeo, 424 US.
1, 126, 1976. The harms that result from the usurpation of Congress's power are extensive, undermining not just a single branch but the democracy itself. The structural interests protected by the Appointments Clause are not those of any one branch of government but of the entire republic.
Freitag v.
CIR 501 U.S. 868, 880, 1991. 2. He has usurped the power of Congress and defied Congress and the judiciary by blocking the distribution of trillions of dollars in funds that have been appropriated by Congress under Congress's exclusive constitutional authority. U.S. Constable Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7, and has refused to disburse these appropriated funds even when ordered to do so by federal courts. Congress is broadly authorized and required by the Constitution to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. U.S. Constant Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, and the President has long been prohibited from refusing to spend funds appropriated by Congress. By blocking funds committed by Congress to meet these purposes, Trump has violated the Constitution, usurped congressional power, and undermined the well-being of the United States and the American people. 3. He has usurped the power of Congress by imposing tariffs of up to 25% on Canada and Mexico, 10% tariffs on nearly all imported goods, additional tariffs of up to 50% on nearly 90 countries, and tariffs and retaliatory tariffs of up to 145% on goods from China. National Council of Nonprofits vs. Office of Management and Budget, Memorandum. Op. Case Number 25 CV 239, DDC February 25, 2025. Noting that White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt publicly announced that the federal funding freeze remained in effect even after the court issued an administrative stay to prohibit defendants from implementing the freeze on pertinent funds. New York vs. Trump, Order. Case Number 25 CV 39, DRA February 20, 2025. Granting plaintiffs' motion for enforcement of the temporary restraining order because defendants had not yet complied with the order. AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition v. U.S. Department of State, Order, Case Number 25 CV 400, DDC February 13, 2025, ordering disbursement of foreign assistance funds that were in place before Trump took office. Zach Montague, Judge gives Trump administration deadline to release foreign aid. New York Times, February 25, 2025. Detailing administration's refusal to adhere to court orders. Op. Case Number 25 CV 239, DDC February 25, 2025, noting that White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt publicly announced that the federal funding freeze remained in effect even after the court issued an administrative stay to prohibit defendants from implementing the freeze on pertinent funds. New York vs. Trump, Order. Case Number 25 CV 39, DRA February 20, 2025. And by engaging in schemes to pause, rescind, modify, and reimpose tariffs. The authority to impose tariffs is vested solely in Congress. See U.S. Constable Article 1, Section 8, which provides that Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Though Congress may and has in certain circumstances delegated tariff authority to the President via statute, it has not done so here. Trump's abrupt and multiple tariff orders have undermined the country's economic stability, its relationship with significant trading partners, and harmed Americans' financial security. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office. Article 5. Defying court orders and usurping judicial authority in his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has engaged in a corrupt course of conduct that demonstrates his unfitness to serve as President of the United States, in that Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents in a course of conduct or plan designed to undermine and usurp the authority and powers vested in the judiciary by Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. The means used to implement this course of conduct or plan included the following, carried out in coordination with or via his close subordinates. 1. He refused to comply with multiple court orders, including from the United States Supreme Court, to facilitate the return of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia back to the United States from El Salvador, despite the fact that he orchestrated Mr. Abrego Garcia's arrest and removal to El Salvador in violation of a long-term withholding of removal court order, arranged for his imprisonment in a Salvadoran maximum security prison, and is paying El Salvador to imprison people, including Mr. Abrego Garcia, who have been removed from the United States. 2. He refused to comply with multiple court orders to suspend the foreign assistance funding freeze and release $2 billion in funding to foreign aid projects. 3. He refused to wholly or promptly comply with multiple court orders to suspend all categorical pauses or freezes to federal funding by the Office of Management and Budget and resume disbursement of appropriated federal funds. 4. He unlawfully removed 261 Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador for immediate imprisonment, in open defiance of aid U.S. Dept of State, v. AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition, 604 US___2025, AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition v. US. Dept of State, Joint Status Report, Case Number 25 CV 400, filed March 14, 2025, AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition v. US. Department of State, Joint Status Report, Case Number 25 CV 400, filed March 6, 2025. New York vs. Trump, Order, Case Number 25 CV 39, February 10, 2025, National Council of Nonprofits vs. Office of Management Budget, Memorandum Opinion, Case Number 25-239, February 25, 2025. A court order 10 and demanding the judge's impeachment solely because Trump disagrees with the judge's ruling. 5. He abruptly and unlawfully removed Dr. Rasha Alawi, a kidney transplant specialist and Brown University Medical School professor with a valid work visa to be in the United States, either in defiance of a court order blocking her deportation or in disregard of the court proceedings and knowledge of an imminent court order. 6. In an effort to undermine the courts and intimidate judges, he repeatedly asserted that the administration is not bound by court orders and demanded the impeachment and removal of judges that ruled against him and officials within his administration, even as these judges face ongoing and increasing threats of violence. Luke Broadwater et al., a judge ordered deportation planes to turn around. The White House didn't listen. New York Times, March 17, 2025, Alan Feuer. Trump administration pushes back against judges' orders on deportations. New York Times, March 18, 2025, Allison Main et al. Trump administration deports hundreds of alleged gang members to El Salvador despite court rulings. CNN, March
17/2025 JGG.
Trump, Memorandum of Law in support of plaintiff's motion for temporary restraining order, case number 25-76, March 15, 2025. Dana Goldstein, Brown University professor, is deported despite a judge's order.
NY.
Times, March 16, 2025, with impeachment, bombs for ruling against Trump agenda, March 14, 2025, with Trump personally calling one judge a troublemaker, an agitator, and falsely identifying as crooked those judges he is forced to appear before. The judiciary is afforded power, in relevant part, over all cases, in law and equity, arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made and to controversies to which the United States shall be a party. U.S. Constitution. Article 3, Section 2. Refusing to adhere to court orders. Intimidating of judges, and recklessly calling for the impeachment and removal of judges who disagree with him demonstrate a willingness by Trump to usurp authority afforded by our Constitution to the judiciary and demonstrate a disregard for the Constitution and the careful balance of powers that protects our country from abuses by any single branch. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of statement from Attorney General Pamela Bondi on federal judge blocking deportations, March 15, 2025, Nicholas Riccardi. Trump administration ramps up rhetoric targeting the courts amid mounting legal setbacks, AP News, March 16, 2025, Reuters. U.S. judges alarmed over rise in violent threats as Trump and Musk lambast them. The Guardian, March 6, 2025, Constitutional Government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office. Article 6. Terminating DOJ and FBI officials based on retribution in his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice, in that Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents in a course of conduct or plan designed to obtain retribution for lawful investigations into his own corrupt or unlawful activities, and to cover up, conceal, and protect himself and other parties involved in these activities. The means used to implement this course of conduct or plan included the following, carried out in coordination with or via his close subordinates. 1. Firing at least 12 nonpartisan public career prosecutors in the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, who were lawfully authorized to work on at least one of two federal prosecutions against Trump, specifically a case related to Trump's interference in the 2020 election and a case related to his improper and unlawful retention of records after he left office. At the time of their termination, then acting Attorney General James McHenry explained that these officials were fired because of their involvement in these prosecutions and asserted that they therefore could not be trusted to assist in faithfully implementing the president's agenda. 2. Firing nonpartisan public servants in the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, who investigated Donald Trump for election interference and the unlawful retention of documents, as well as nonpartisan officials in charge of at least 5 FBI field offices. 3. Firing FBI agents and approximately 24 DOJ prosecutors, all of whom were nonpartisan career public servants, who worked on the investigation and prosecution of cases stemming from the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. In this matter, Donald John Trump has sought retribution against federal prosecutors for carrying out their duties with regard to the investigation and prosecution of his co-insurrectionists. 4. Demanding from then acting director of the FBI a full list of thousands of authorized investigative officers and employees of the FBI for the purpose of carrying out a review process to determine whether any additional personnel actions are necessary solely because they were assigned to and did carry out duties related to the January 6 insurrection investigations. 5. Terminating, reassigning, and demoting thousands of FBI and U.S. DOJ officials, thereby undermining the independence of both agencies and the security of the United States. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office. Article 7. Co-opting and dismantling federal agencies for corrupt purposes. In his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald John Trump, in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has engaged in a corrupt course of conduct that demonstrates his unfitness to serve as President of the United States, in that Donald John Trump, using the powers of his high office, engaged personally and through his close subordinates and agents in a course of conduct or plan designed to prevent independent government oversight of his own business entities and those of his benefactors. The means used to implement this course of conduct or plan included the following, carried out in coordination with or via his close subordinates. 1. He has limited the effective operations of agencies tasked with overseeing and investigating businesses operated by Elon Musk, the richest man in the world and Trump's single largest billionaire benefactor. With the encouragement and complicity of Trump, Musk gave approximately $260 million in contributions to his own super PACs to support Trump's 2024 election campaign. 14. Purchased the world's largest social media company, Twitter, now X, and converted it into a vehicle to promote Trump's 2024 campaign, reinstating Trump's privileges on Twitter, from which he had been banned following his incitement of the January 6, 2021, insurrection and permitting and promoting a massive disinformation campaign to support Trump's election in 2024, and engaged in an unlawful $1 million lottery. Tricia the Danny et al. Elon Musk donated $288 million in 2024 election, final tally shows, Washington Post, January 31, 2025, scheme to bribe voters to vote for Trump in 2024. Musk and his businesses have 100 contracts with 17 federal agencies accounting for at least $15.4 billion. He has appointed Elon Musk to be a special government employee in charge of the newly established Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. DOGE has been given access to agency data and has either authorized or issued advice that Trump or his agency directors have acted upon to terminate thousands of employees, freeze trillions of dollars in federal grant funds, and limit agency activities. Many of these agencies have oversight of Musk's companies or contract with Musk's companies. Eric Lipton et al., U.S. Agencies Fund, and fight with Elon Musk. A Trump presidency could give him power over them. New York Times, updated October 21, 2024, SpaceX has at least $15.4 billion in government contracts. Tesla has at least $352,000 in government contracts. Executive Order 14158, January 20, 2025, the President's Department of Government Efficiency, Joe Hernandez, Trump hired Musk as a special government employee. Here's what that means, NPR.org, February 13, 2025. See Meg Kennard, a comprehensive look at DOGE's firings and layoffs so far, AP News, February 21, 2025. See Eric Lipton and Kirsten Grind, Elon Musk's business empire scores benefits under Trump shakeup, New York Times, February 11, 2025, sheet, Trump administration, DOGE punish agencies investigating Elon Musk's. He fired the National Labor Relations Board's, NLRB, General Counsel and one Democratic NLRB board member without notice and hearing, and without specific claim of neglect of duty or malfeasance in office, as required by federal law, 29 U.S.C. Section 153, leaving the NLRB with insufficient members to establish quorum to adjudicate cases. 19 The NLRB was pursuing approximately 24 investigations into Musk-controlled companies SpaceX, Tesla, and X and had filed a case against SpaceX. Musk sued NLRB in response to the lawsuit. On January 21, 2025, Trump issued an executive order that ceased Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, OFCCP, operations before its 2024 investigation into Tesla, a Musk-owned company, could be concluded or its results be made public. 20 The OFCCP, established by President Companies, Democrats House Committee on the Judiciary, Kimberly Kindy and Brian Sladisco, key things to know about how Tesla could benefit from Elon Musk's assault on government, AP News, February 11, 2025. New process Steel v. NLRB, 560 U.S. 674, 2010, 29 U.S.C. Section 153, b. Executive Order 14173, January 21, 2025, Johnson in 1965, 21 enforces equal employment laws for federal contractors.
D.
Trump has fired 2 Democratic, Senate-confirmed commissioners of the Bipartisan Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EOC, in the middle of their terms without notice and hearing, for neglect of duty or malfeasance in office as required by law, 29 U.S.C. Section 153, which leaves the EEOC without quorum. 22 EEOC is charged with protecting employees from unlawful and discriminatory hiring practices, and sued Tesla for racial harassment and retaliation at its Fremont, California manufacturing facilities in 2023.
E.
The Trump administration suspended all investigative work and other critical operations by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, shut its headquarters, 25 and fired dozens exec. Order number 11246, 3 CFR 339, 1964-65, reprinted in 42 U.S.C. 2000 E-Note, 1994.
Du zet et du sa du mi ekater sa.
2342 U.S.C. Section 2000 E2, A-B. EOC v. Tesla, Inc., Case number 4:23 CV 4984, ND Cal. 2023. Laurel Walmsley, Treasury Secretary Besant, tapped to run CFPB, orders staff to halt work, npr.org, February 4, 2025. Christopher Ruggeber, Trump administrator orders Consumer Protection Agency to stop work, closes building, AP News of Workers. Employees of DOJ were granted access to sensitive data held by CFPB, including the agency's human resources, procurement, and financial information. The day after DOJ obtained access to CFPB, Musk tweeted CFPB RIP. The CFPB is tasked with implementing and enforcing federal consumer financial law to ensure that markets for consumer financial products and services are fair, transparent, and competitive, and to exercise its authority to ensure that consumers are protected from unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts and practices and from discrimination by banks and other financial service providers. 29 Had CFPB not been ordered to stop work, it would have regulated Musk. February 9, 2025, 26 Lauren Feiner, the technology team at financial regulator CFPB has been gutted. The Verge, February 14, 2025, CFPB union sounds alarm, urgent action needed to protect sensitive consumer and industry data, CFPB union NTE 335, February 7, 2025, McKenna Kelly, DOJ is now inside the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Wired. February 7, 2025, Holly Otterbein and Katie O'Donnell, CFPB RIP. Elon Musk is already descending on his next target, Politico, February 7, 2025, 2912 U.S.C. Section 5511, A, B. Controlled X's planned mobile payment services, and had authority to investigate and oversee privacy issues, fraud, and disputed transaction policies on all mobile payment applications. The CFPB also supervised the auto lending industry and was in receipt of nearly 300 complaints against Tesla. Donald John Trump, via or on advice of DOJ, has laid off or bought out between 4 and 10% of National Highway Traffic Safety Administration employees, including 3 of the 7 experts in an office that oversees the safety of autonomous vehicles. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has 3 active investigations of Tesla, including one examining the safety of the company's autonomous driving software in Poor Bobby Allen, Elon Musk's Doge takes aim at agency that had plans of regulating X, NPR.org, February 12, 2025, Eric Lipton and Kirsten Grind. Elon Musk's business empire scores benefits under Trump shakeup, New York Times, February 11, 2025, Jack Ewing. Officials are fired at traffic safety agency investigating Musk's company, New York Times, February 22, 2025, Ian Duncan. Doge employee cuts fall heavily on agency that regulates Musk's Tesla, Washington Post, February 20, 2025, visibility conditions. These terminations cut nearly in half the capacity of an expertise in an agency tasked with overseeing Tesla and all companies that are seeking to use autonomous vehicle technology. 2. Donald John Trump ordered the unlawful termination of more than 17 duly appointed inspectors general of 8 U.S. agencies, 34 who served as nonpartisan public servants charged with preventing government waste, fraud, and abuse by carrying out independent audits and investigations of their respective agencies' operations, personnel, and contracts with external entities. They were terminated without notice to Congress and without case-specific rationale for their terminations, in violation of federal law. 35 The removal of nonpartisan inspectors general limits agencies. Ian Duncan. Doge employee cuts fall heavily on agency that regulates Musk's Tesla, Washington Post, February 20, 2025, Ian Duncan and Aaron Gregg. Crashes involving Tesla's full self-driving prompt new federal probe, Washington Post, October 18, 2024, Zeke Miller et al. Trump uses mass firing to remove independent inspectors general at various agencies. Time, January 8, 2025. 5 U.S.C. Section 403b, if an inspector general is removed from office, the president shall communicate in writing the substantive rationale, including detailed and case-specific reasons for any such removal or transfer to both houses of Congress, including the appropriate congressional committees, not later than 30 days before the removal or transfer. Ability to prevent, detect, and prosecute fraud, waste, and corruption, and to investigate corporations, including those owned by Trump, Musk, or other Trump allies and benefactors, with whom the agencies contract or whose operations fall under the agency's purview. Inspectors General from the Department of Labor, the Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the Department of Transportation, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture were all terminated after or while their agencies or agencies within their purview carried out investigations against Musk-owned companies. Musk also has lucrative contracts with agencies whose inspectors general were terminated, including the Department of Defense. 3. Trump prohibited the Department of Justice from undertaking any new investigations or enforcement actions for at least 180 days under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, a federal law that prohibits U.S. corporations and individuals from bribing foreign government officials in order to obtain or retain Executive Order 14209, February 10, 2025, business with a foreign government. Trump's executive order also orders the U.S. Attorney General to review ongoing existing FCPA investigations and enforcement actions, and authorizes him to extend the moratorium by an additional 180 days. The prohibition will enable businesses controlled by Trump, his family, and his allies to bribe foreign governments to obtain business advantages with no legal consequences. 4. The DOJ has moved to dismiss with prejudice a discrimination lawsuit brought by the DOJ against Musk's SpaceX in 2023 for its refusal to hire refugees and people granted asylum in the United States, in violation of federal law. In all of this, Donald John Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. See 15 U.S.C. Section 78 DD1, A. See unopposed motion to lift preliminary injunction for limited purpose, Space Exploration Technologies Corporation v. Bell, number 1-23 CV 137, SD Tex. February 20, 2025, seeking lift of administrative stay so that DOJ Civil Rights Division may file a notice of dismissal of the administrative proceeding with prejudice. Wherefore Donald John Trump, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, and removal from office.